Blessings, everybody, and good morning. Okay, I'm just going to play this through. I'm going to give it to you the way I received it, as I always do. And right now, I'm still shaking my head, and I'm just being still before the Lord. And, I'm just being still. So, as I'm being still, this is what is being brought before me. Okay, so again, I'm going to not say any more other than to say, these videos that I'm about to show you here, okay, it was like a dominoes effect. It was like, first I saw Derek Prince, the 11 minutes here of Daniel, and then the following morning when I got up, it was the video of Chief, I believe his name is Dan, Chief Dan, okay, and I'm just going to leave it there, and just like I said, it was video after video after video, and again, discernment, okay? And believe me, this goes straight in to basketball. Unbelievable. This is just, this is for you to decide.
Is a hostile kingdom which opposes us and seeks to hinder our prayers. And that's why sometimes we have to pray through. You understand? It's not that we're praying out of the will of God. It's not that God is unwilling to hear, but we have to penetrate a hostile kingdom in the heavenlies to reach God. Now, rather than speculate, I want to give you a passage from the book of Daniel, which very clearly reveals that this is so. I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but if you're interested, you would do well to read the chapter for yourself later. Daniel chapter 10. This chapter relates how Daniel set aside a period of 3 weeks for special prayer. And he did what we've come to call a Daniel fast. He didn't give up all food, but he only ate the plainest and simplest food, and he drank no wine, and he ate no meat. And he was mourning before God on behalf of his people Israel, who were captives of a Gentile empire. And at the end of 3 weeks, a very glorious angel came to him with the answer to his prayer, which was a revelation from God of what would be the future of his people, which consists of Daniel chapters 11 and 12. But the angel said to him, the first day you began to pray, your prayer was heard, and I was sent with the answer to your prayer. But, he said, it took me 3 weeks to get through, because somewhere between the throne of God and Daniel on earth, I was opposed by satanic angels, and I had to force my way through those angels. So it's very clear that at the time of Daniel, somewhere between God's throne and earth, there was this satanic kingdom. I believe it's still there. It was still there when Paul wrote Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, which was at least 30 years after the death and resurrection and ascension of Jesus. In other words, whatever the situation was, it wasn't changed by the death and resurrection and ascension of Jesus. Jesus ascended far above Satan's kingdom, but Satan's kingdom still remained in place. And then the angel told Daniel, I've come with the answer to your prayer, and when I leave, I'm going to have to fight my way back through the same angels, and then I'm going to have to fight other satanic angels. And the angel that came to Daniel said, on my way here, the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. So for 21 days, these angels were battling in the heavenlies. And he also speaks about kings of Persia. in the language of the King James, and which is used here, I understand the prince was the supreme ruler, the kings were sub-rulers, but they were all concerned with the kingdom or the empire of Persia, which at that time was the largest and most powerful empire on earth. It had 127 provinces. So Satan had one super angel who was responsible to him for the whole kingdom of Persia. But this super angel had other angels that were responsible for different areas within the kingdom of Persia. Now, this is no theory for me because I've seen in many instances and cases how this principle works. For instance, let's suppose that there were major cities in the Empire of Persia, which there were. Well, I think there was one sub-angel over each major city. As I travel from city to city and place to place, I've learned that to be effective in ministry in a certain city, very often I have to identify the particular satanic power that's at work in that city. And it's different from city to city to city. Again, there were a lot of different nationalities in the Persian Empire. And my observation is that many times there's a particular satanic king over a particular racial group. Taking the United States, which is made up of many different racial groups, and where I've lived now for more than 20 years, my clear impression is that different racial groups have different satanic powers over them, and in dealing with those racial groups spiritually, it becomes important to identify the power that's over them. For instance, as everybody knows, there are a lot of black Negroes in America. Now, I have no prejudice against black people. I love them. I have a black daughter. But they are the descendants of people who were taken there as slaves. And I've shared this with black Americans. You'll find that most black Christians can only get so far, and something seems to stop them. And I have shared my opinion that you came as slaves. You've been politically emancipated, but you've never been spiritually emancipated. You're still under a spirit of slavery. Now, Paul speaks about a spirit of slavery in Romans chapter 8 when he says, we have not received a spirit of slavery again, but the spirit of the God which makes us sons and daughters of God. And when he's talking about slavery, if you look at the context, he's talking about religious legalism. People whose religion consists of sets of rules. Do this, don't do that. My observation again is that nearly all black American churches are extremely legalistic. Hardly any of them know the real liberty of God's grace. What is the reason? The reason is that that spirit of slavery has never really been dealt with. It still has a measure of control over them. They're Christians, many of them, and some of them are very lovely Christians. But as a group, they've never been set free. Take another group in the United States, the American Indians. Basically, the United States is a country of liberty. Unfortunately, liberty has been carried much too far these days. It's a country where almost anybody can prosper because of the nature of the economy and the laws and so on. You don't have to have a doctorate in philosophy to prosper. In fact, you probably do better without it. But there's one group that basically have never prospered, the American Indians. They've never prospered financially, they've never prospered socially, and spiritually they are still in awful darkness. They are basically all practices of witchcraft. Very powerful witchcraft. It's a tragedy. But my impression is that until someone with vision understands the root problem of the American Indians and is prepared to do the spiritual warfare to release them, they'll remain in bondage. Now, I've been wise enough to take my examples from a distant land, but I think if you ponder what I'm saying, in a little while you'll begin to see that there are similar principles operating in Asia. Very strong principles. Now, when the angel had finished telling Daniel about this, he said, when I go, I'll have to fight again with the prince of the kingdom of Persia, and then after that, I'll have to fight with the prince of the kingdom of Greece. Now, why Persia and Greece? Well, because there were 4 Gentile empires that dominated God's people, Israel, and their land, and the city of Jerusalem. And you see, the battle is always most intense spiritually where God's kingdom's issues are focused. So wherever God is at work, you'll find that Satan will be at work also. His very name means the resistor. See? He resists God's purposes and God's people. He can't help it. He's a slave of his own nature. So there were 4 such successive Gentile empires that dominated Israel: Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. Now, in Daniel's day, Persia was still the dominant empire, but the next one to follow it would be Greece. And so we see that the spiritual warfare, in a way, relates to God's people, God's purposes, and in a sense, it's necessary to carry out this spiritual warfare in order for God's purposes for his people to be fulfilled. And Daniel is a marvelous pattern of somebody who by prayer and fasting and intercession changed the history of his people.
Back in the old days when I was growing up, it was about...
Okay, so this is the video. When I woke up the next morning, this was the first video that I saw.
6, 7 years old, I was staying with my grandparents. They would tell a lot of stories about things in the night, Anyway, they told me that there's some things out there that can be seen, or
Here comes that age.
they could either be in an animal form, or maybe a human form, or half human, or half animal. That sort of stuff, And also they told me about how when the Spanish conquistadors came up this way, or the cavalry, they used to spy on their camps. The only way they could do that was to change into an animal, so they can sneak into their camp and listen to their plans for the next day. See which way that they would be marching, or if they see in a Navajo village or hiding place, they would go in there and capture these young men and young girls and take them to Mexico to work in the silver mines or gold mines that they had.
So basically, you're telling me at one particular time and juncture that there was an actual working relationship with Skinwalker then. I mean, he was working for the people, for their benefit at one time.
Yes. And then through the years, when everything was normal, after the long walk,
And the long walk, meaning that was the march to Fort Sumner?
Yes.
And that was 1871?
1868.
1868.
So that's when they came back and they settled back in here. And these things, or the people that knew how to do these things, I don't know. They tell me that all you need to do is learn one song, and you can change into any animal whether it's as small as a fox, or as big as an elk or a horse. You could use any one of the skins that you can get into to spy on your neighbor or whoever, you know.
So outside of the Western view of the skinwalker, as far as what's been revealed, typically they take the hide of an animal and they emulate this animal. But also I've heard that they have to eat the parts of a dead person and or sacrifice someone very close to them. Is there a darker art to skinwalker and perhaps a lighter art?
What I've heard was if you want to practice, you know, to do skinwalking, you would have to sacrifice a loved one, somebody that you really cherish. Could be your parents or grandparents or your family or your kids, you know. You have to sacrifice that person in order for it to work on, you know, to practice this thing.
So, I mean, that would be a very dark thing for you to sacrifice a loved one.
Oh, yes, yeah. They do it, though. They do it.
Obviously.
So, if you bought a brand new truck and it's sitting in your yard, they get jealous. Your neighbor could get jealous of you and say, hey, I want that truck too. I want one like that too. So, they hire one of these people to put an X on you. So, say within 6 months, you get behind on your payment, or you either lose the truck or you get into a wreck or somebody hits it, you know. And then this person that wanted that same type of truck in their yard, they gain what you lose.
Okay, so this video immediately followed the one we're watching right now. So, like I said, it was like a dominoes, okay?
You hurt anywhere? Wake up. Sit up. Navajo police, wake up. Are you okay?
Alright.
You got blood on your hand. Can you sit up? Make sure you're okay.
Okay.
What's your name?
Wait.
Just for my safety, I'm going to handcuff you. Okay, come on.
Alright.
Come on. The scene is spread out. We've got things going on at the parking lot, and then the vehicle is across the road. As far as we know, we have 2 victims over here now, so... And he doesn't want... He's not really saying what happened. Axe victim, he's over there.
As the cops work the confusing 3-part crime scene, a bizarre story emerges. Apparently, the female victim was a passenger in the truck as it left the trading post.
It came across the intersection and
Yeah.
barely missed like a RV type thing going this way.
Yeah.
And he ended up over kind of in the ditch, or
Yeah.
whoever was driving, and it did a 180 right here. And as it was turning, that's when the lady came out of the truck. And it went right over the top of her. And the whole time, she wasn't moving at all. I thought she was dead.
A lady fell out right there, where all the blood is. And the rear tire drove over her. The vehicle eventually stops, and one of her passengers throws her into the back of the truck, and then they take off.
He got her in, they went down there and went down that dirt road, and where they went, I don't know. But then we seen her driving the truck back that way.
That's so far the story. This is one of the crazy ones where you don't know what's going on. The guy that I have, he was actually a passenger when this vehicle spun out and ran over the lady. So he's involved too, so he's just not saying.
Lucy Dan transports her suspect to the jail in Tuba City.
I'm gonna take you to the jack. The gates. Hey.
Alrighty, I'm gonna book this guy and spend 8 hours here, sober up, and he can head home tomorrow.
But not before he puts a death curse on a member of our camera crew that's supposed to kill him in 333 days.
333 days. 333.
We're not sure what started the fight or who bashed in the windows with that. Bashed in the windows with the axe. Bashed in the windows with the axe. Fortunately, the woman is okay. She ran herself over. A lot of times we don't get the right story or it's either exaggerated or we just don't get the whole thing. Okay. I still don't know how she ran herself over.
Or if you have a beautiful wife, and
Who had the technology?
that's what the older people told me. That's how they work. Or if you have a beautiful wife, and somebody is jealous of it because, hey, I want something like that. I want to be like this person, a beautiful wife, and people will look up to me and put me above in their community so that I can be proud of what I have. So that's how they work these things. I don't know how they do it, but that's what happens.
Well, so we're talking. That's what keeps popping up in my head. Not that in my beliefs there's any real white magic either. I mean, it's a real cut and dried thing with me and my beliefs. But this really does just jealousy and petty things like that.
Yeah, it's just a lot of times it's jealousy, just pure jealousy.
And not so much about the root of what is making these strange things we're seeing out here. And if we can tie in the dogman, which is, I've got several reports on these dogmen. If they tie in with a skinwalker, or are these dogmen a separate cryptid species yet undiscovered? That's something we need to address. And it's going to take looking at all these different things and put it all together and try to come up with a common denominator involved in this whole genre.
Yeah, like I said, they're everywhere. Even nowadays, even the 7-year-old can become a skinwalker.
How does that happen? How do they get indoctrinated into something like that?
That's what I don't really know, and I've just heard stories that you can go to a meeting. They have a meeting probably every week or every month, like your PTA meetings, stuff like that. Then that's where they initiate you into their society to start doing bad things to your people or your neighbors.
Are these like sings, or are they like TP meetings, or are they like peyote meetings? What type of?
Mostly it's isolated meetings, and it could be in a cave or in some place where it's way out in the middle of nowhere, where they won't be surprised by the police or some other people.
So this really is a secret society.
Yes,
that
it
would
is,
be involved
yes.
in this.
Mm-hmm. When they have a meeting, this I got from different people that I talk to. They tell me that when you go inside a meeting, they lay out different skins, and you have to stand behind each one. And while they're singing, that skin will start creeping up on you and dressing you up of whatever skin you were standing behind. Could be, like I said, a fox, or maybe an elk, or just whatever. And then the headman will say, okay, try that out. Take a run out there a mile and then come back and turn in and see if that's the one you want to be.
And if they transform, are they aware of this? Or is there something that takes them over?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that, because it probably does, because of the way they act, and they try to imitate whatever hype is on them. Like if they're an elk. I've seen an elk out here, and there's no elk down in this area, just up on the mountains. At night I saw one out here, and I looked at it, and I just brushed it off, and I thought, oh, okay, they're around here. Probably traveling from that mountain to this one. So
Well, I also understand that there's always something kinky about the animal they're trying to emulate. There's always something just isn't quite right. You know,
right, that's
I've
true.
heard that
Very
time
true.
and
Like
time
I said
again.
about this elk, it looked at me and it turned around and the back end of it, like it just drug around, like a, how you say, he didn't turn like an animal would, you know, forced.
Almost artificially.
Yeah, then this one would just drag its hind quarter back around like that.
That's amazing.
So that's how they do it. Even a horse, you know.
You know, years ago with witnesses that day, and I've heard that 3 or more people won't see the same thing. It can only fool so many or put off the montage of what it is to so many people. And if 5 people saw,
that's true. Yes, because I could say, look at that coyote standing out there. Then you know everybody would look over there, but they probably won't see it.
probably 2 or 3 people out of 5 would see a coyote, and
Yes.
a couple other people would see something different.
It'll move, but it'll disappear between like a tree or a post, something like that. It'll go behind it. The only thing that will see it is probably a cat and a dog. I think that was one of them. So
That was something that crew had never experienced before, is glowing red eyes in a dog.
So Leonard, would the skinwalker realm be considered somewhat of a form of witchcraft in general?
yes, yeah, mostly witchcraft, jealousy, everything around them, or not only them. They're usually hired by other people to do a hex on so and so because of their belongings or what they have, whatever they have of value.
Let me ask you this: what would be the benefit of animal form to do these indignities to people, as far as curses and bad things? Is it for the stealth effect, so they can sneak up, sneak in, and get their
Yes,
their mission done?
mostly like for stuff. But if you come face to face with one, they probably throw something on you where it would paralyze you momentarily, or a lot of times, you know, it would be fatal. But most of the times when they investigate it, it's like an accident. Like, you know, a car accident.
Or a coronary, unexplained, a mysterious death.
Yes, unexplained death or something like that.
Okay, so here's where it gets really crazy, because this was my next video. Okay, so here, this is a basketball game. I really want you to concentrate on the masks, the faces of the ball players, okay, and hooves. And so I'm just going to play this out. Now, there's 2 things here going on with me, because one, I look at this and then it looks like there's a ball player, okay? That's who, you know, like an arm, and then there's the head. But then when I look at it, it looks like there's a woman in pink who's looking directly at the player here, holding a mask of some sort. Now, again, this is what I can see here, and at the same time, it could be the player, the opposite team. I know it's crazy, right? But yeah, okay, so I'm going to play this out. This is very important that you see this. Now, I found this channel, offshoot 100 and reptilians and hooves, okay? So, this is important. Again, we're dealing with witchcraft, okay? A very okay, well, it's strong magic, okay? All right, so here we go. Where am I here? Okay, so he doesn't talk through this. Now, I want to say here that this is a hoof, this is a foot, and you can do your, you know, own exploring here, if you just, you know, play around with it, you will see that this is supposed to be a foot, okay? Okay, so he's going to shapeshift this one here. Again, very important, the face. You can see here, there's his, you know, his face, but it looks like he's wearing a mask. Don't know where his hand is there. Almost looks like a pig face, nostril in the eyes. Again. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. Okay, the hoof here. Good call right there. Here. Now here we have, it looks like a dog face. It's got a snout. Okay, you got the eyes. It's got a snout. Okay, his nose. Okay, so it does look like a dog face for me anyway. Okay, and in here you can't even see his face. There's a dog face right there, right? Look, see how his face is painted here, white, with a mask? Look at that. Isn't that something, eh? So I believe this is all witchcraft. That all these games, okay? Yeah. Looks like again, it looks like a reptilian there, eh? Snout. Face here. So again, you understand I'm looking at witchcraft. We are looking at witchcraft here, right? Okay. All right. Okay, so you saw the hooves, you've seen, okay, that. Now, this picture I took back, I think it was in 2013, okay? This was with the Pope's visit here to America. Now, I'm sorry for the fuzziness in that, but I know that you can make this out, okay? Again, I asked my husband, do you see it? Do you see it? Okay, so here we can see this person's leg. This is supposed to be a leg, okay? Now, I'll just back it up a bit. Okay, so you've got all, security. They're waiting for the Pope to enter the room. They're getting everything ready, and I noticed this. I took a picture of the leg. No more than what you just saw in the basketball game. Okay? This is witchcraft. And I'm going to bring it even further, okay? So here we have this person's leg, which is a hoof of an animal, okay? Witchcraft. But I also want to show you this. Look at the room here. It's a blue mist all through the room. It stops up here. It's not up here only. You can, right? Can you see it? Okay. There's a blue mist. Now, when I saw this, I went back for the leg because I remembered the person's leg looking like an animal leg, okay? And so then I remembered another shaman from Africa. And I remember a lot of the things that he spoke about, I could verify in truth that he was speaking. It resonated to me, okay? What he was saying in truth. Not all. I don't know all of it, but the parts that he did talk about. Again, okay? I'm just going to bring you back to what he was saying about the blue mist. And this is what you're seeing in the government here. Okay? I'll just go into different pictures here so that you can see the blue here on what I'm talking about and how clear it is, Okay. Oops. Okay, here we go there. All right, see that? Okay.
The great mountains known as the Inyangani, the Weeping Moon Mountains. There, even now, people disappear without trace. Sometimes a person would disappear for several days and reappear a few days later, not knowing where he had been or where she had been. And white people have disappeared there. Black people in their thousands have disappeared there. It was there that I also went missing for 4 days in 1959 in one of the most traumatic experiences of my life.
Okay, I just want to read this. Malachi 1:3. And I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness.
It's a long story, sir. My teacher, Elizabeth Moyo, had sent me to get a special herb which grows only on the foothills of those mountains. It was just an ordinary day like any other, just beautiful day like this one outside here. And I love the African wilderness. I'm at home in the bush, especially in the days when I was still in good health. I love the animals. I love their smell, and I love the smell of the vegetation. And I was looking for this herb when all of a sudden a bright blue mist fell all around me. some time to react to this strange thing. It was a hot day, and all of a sudden, the temperature around me dropped. It was as if I was on the slope of a very cold mountain, but it was a warm day. And then, the next moment, I was in what appeared to be a metal-lined tunnel, a caving tunnel, and I was lying on what looked like a workbench, a very large workbench of some kind. You know, an iron table which an engineer or somebody working with metal would use for welding and cutting metal upon. But this workbench was very brightly polished, and there I was lying there with my trousers missing and only my khaki shirt, when I saw again through what appeared to be like blue mist a number of moving objects, which at first I thought were dolls. And these objects were moving towards me. I noticed with mild surprise that they were very thin, short, human-like creatures with very, very large melon-shaped heads. The creatures had no noses, as human beings have. They had only small little holes on either side of where the nose would be, and their mouths.
Okay, I just really wanted you to hear about the blue mist, okay? Okay, so I don't know why. I don't know why this is all messed up, but anyway. Okay, so there you go with the blue mist. So there's witchcraft or something definitely going on. Okay. You have this person here and the leg, the hoof. Okay. So what I'm trying to show here is this is the Pope. Okay. Just trust me, this is the Pope. I was taking the pictures. Okay. And it was the growth that was coming off of his face. And I'm going to try to fix this a little bit. See, this is the Pope here, okay? And he also changes. Now, the Pope here looks like he's wearing a mask. Okay? And I don't know how to do this any better than, or show it to you any better than what it is here. But you can see his face, you can see his eyes, but you can see here that it's also a white mask over his nose. No. This is really upsetting because I know what I'm seeing here and I can't show it to you. It's not being seen. He just gets brighter and brighter. You can see the face, his lips here, his nose, and then you can see it, his eyes. Okay. Oops. So here we have the growth. What I'm trying to show you with the Pope. Pope has the same thing happening to him. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So here you can see the snout coming from his face. All right. You can see his eyes. Not happy. Okay. But here it is there. Okay. Snout right there. See? Right here. Right. And you can see his eyes. Let me just try to show you. Right. Okay. And here you have it right here coming out of the Pope's face right here. Again, I'm so sorry that you cannot see it as I can see this. It's very upsetting. Just going to try to go through all of this and see if you guys can see it. Okay, this is where I'm going here with this. Maybe that one's a little better. No, I don't know. There it is there. Okay. So there's your blue mist right there. And there's your leg.